Hello, everybody. Hello. I don't know if you all heard, it's only been a couple months, but we have a new president. I don't know if you know that. I saw somebody tweet out, is South by Southwest going political? I just want to say, have a conversation with everybody about the issue, the concept, the most powerful force, I think, in the universe, the force that has shaped and guided our country to the moment we are now, and that is love. The love of Americans has shown, as it's evolved, the ability to leap space and time, to leap obstacles, to span differences. And we are a nation that was not founded because we all look alike, spoke the same language, or prayed alike. I believe in many ways the hope of our nation actually does lie with many of our historical figures and how they acted in times like this. I'm not one of these folks that wants to whitewash our American history and eliminate the ugliness and the bigotry and the sexism and the hate that was prevalent in our history. But the power of our history is that despite that, we seem to have chosen a harder pathway of love despite the hate and divisiveness. Stokely Carmichael used to say, constitute. I can only say 3/5 of the word. This is a problematic use of words when Americans appeal to this ideal that we should be a nation of tolerance. I think that's really problematic if that is the aspirational ideal of our society, because it is a rejection of that larger goal that we have, the more difficult goal, which is to be a nation of love. Tolerance says that I don't need you. Love says you are essential to my well-being. While I am a big proponent and lover of technology and innovation, I am not a lover of the separations that are becoming easier and more convenient, where we can create our own virtual bubble around our lives, where we literally are no longer seeing one another and understanding our need for one another, and it's becoming even more convenient to have confirmation bias and to begin to believe I am so right and you are so wrong. I'm one of these people. I love faith, I love religion, I've studied many of them, but I'm the first person to say, wait, before you tell me about your religion, first show it to me in how you treat other people. To leave the geographic ideal of neighborliness and be there for our neighbor that might exist on Martin Luther King Boulevard, on a Native American reservation, in poor Appalachian town. They are Americans, we are Americans, and we must see each other, because that is the beginning, the necessary ingredient to the greatest force in our country right now and our only salvation. And that's to love one another. Thank you. We do things every day in America that other countries, NATO countries, industrialized countries, look at us and go, we are doing things that they call torture in their country to our children in prison systems. I hear all these conversations that have sprung up in the last 2 months about all these outrageous things are going on, and I want to remind people that these outrages have been deep in our society for a very long time, and I'm happy that folk are getting woke. What King says, even more condemning than hatred and bigotry. He says what our generation will have to repent for is not the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, it's the appalling silence and inaction of the good people. Why do we have this sense that, first of all, politics is separate and apart from our lives? Everything we do is an expression of the polis, the decision we make on the food that we eat. This fabric, how do you get a $5 t-shirt? That is endorsing systems and being complicit in systems. But I really think it's a message to all of us that we see the truth of our society, that if we do not engage, if we do not participate, then we are the source of the problem, not necessarily that elected official we don't like.
Has tech and has social media made us better citizens, or has it coarsened our level of discourse?
I just think that social media, like TV, like all these new technologies, are neutral platforms. The power of those platforms is going to be determined by who engages with them and who uses them. If the platforms are ceded and surrendered to those forces, they're going to use them and pervert them and undermine them. But if people who are activists are finding ways to use technology, to embrace technology, they can be powerful forces for good on the planet Earth. I see often more valuable than a speech on the Senate floor. A lot of the videos I'm putting up on Facebook and Twitter right now, just sitting in my office explaining policy to people on Facebook. And while the C-SPAN audience, no disrespect, but the 14 people who might watch me on C-SPAN, and my mom makes 15, when we can get, I think my last video got something like 1 million views. I'm sorry, when I go home at night and I'm just feeling like I need some spirit, I turn Rachel on because Rachel gets me charged up again, and excited. But then I have to remind myself that I don't want to just listen to people that tell me the things that source me and excite me and say, yeah, I want to try to turn over to Fox and watch what fellow Americans are consuming. I want to turn over to PBS, who's going to give me a lot more news because there is a planet out there beyond America's borders. We have 2 different justice systems. As a person you and I both respect, Brian Stevenson says, in America, we have a nation that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than poor and innocent. Bush and Obama didn't admit to doing a little marijuana. They copped to felony drug use. And there are more African Americans now tied up in the prison system than all the slaves in the 1860s. And that the overwhelming majority of them are getting caught up for non-violent drug offenses. You take a guy like Jeff Sessions, who is speaking out, fighting us, fighting his own party. The Koch brothers even support dramatically lowering mandatory minimums and other reforms. For Jeff Sessions not only to be fighting us there, but then fighting police accountability. In fact, young whites have a little bit higher rates of dealing drugs than young blacks, but if you're black in America, you're almost 4 times more likely to be arrested for it. So with even the head of the FBI saying that, the Obama Justice Department investigating Ferguson, investigating Newark, and Jeff Sessions speaks out against that. But we hope in the coming month to put a bill out about the treatment of women in prisons, addressing many of the issues that you've been talking to me about for so long. So thank you for influencing policy.
It says from the audience, will you be running for president? Please say yes.
My snarky response to this often is, I'm running from the president, I'm not running for the president. But that's not true. Senators make a mistake if they start thinking about positioning themselves for the next election they have, or especially for a higher political office. I don't know what the future holds, but in this time in American history, I want to be a fearsome truth teller. Let's not focus on 2020. Let's focus on right now and what we could be doing to tell the truth about the injustices that we're surrounded by.
What is the right balance of regulation and deregulation when it comes to spurring technological innovation?
I think that we have a government that is not moving at the speed of innovation, that we have a government that's actually strangling a lot of innovators with over-regulation. So I worry now, and I'm actively working, that this country is being left behind on everything from next generation nuclear energy, which is so exciting and so removes so much of the danger out of it, that nuclear engineers are literally going to China or Russia or other places in Europe and leaving the United States because we are not a fertile ground for nuclear energy innovation. The same thing with driverless cars I worry about. The same things with biologics. We've got to be a country that continues to be the greatest net exporter of innovation. We have to understand that so many people have legitimate anger about a system that is no longer what it was during my grandparents' time, where people are watching their kids not get the same bargain that they did. Their wages in this country have been stagnant for 20 years. There's so many things that are legitimate angers and frustrations. The problem is that creates an environment where demagoguery and fear-mongering can tell you, well, it's Muslims' fault, or it's Mexicans' fault, when really your jobs, 80% of factory jobs have disappeared in America that have gone away. Were not the Mexicans, it was the microchip. In America, if we continue to shine lights on our differences and don't do the harder search for our commonalities, we're going to further break apart our nation and undermine our ability as a country to do the big things.
That's right.